Aloha, I'm Nicholas Jordan Moore. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to let go of shame and guilt. I hope you enjoy it. Some of the most difficult things in this spiritual journey or awakening journey is really letting go of the shame and guilt that we hold from maybe things that we did in our childhood or even things that we did in our adulthood. Part of being human is hurting other people sometimes. It's not a pretty part of being human, but it's something that all of us do at one time or another, whether it be on purpose or an accident. But we all do things that we regret sometimes, and then we oftentimes have shame or guilt. Unless, of course, you're a narcissist, and then there's no shame or guilt there. But for the majority of us, we have these feelings, and a lot of times we carry these feelings on throughout the rest of our lives, and it affects the relationships that we get into. So if we're really going to get the love from the outside world that we are really hoping to get so we can give it to someone else, we have to learn how to give that love to ourselves. And you can't really step into that self-love category until you've really forgiven yourself. People oftentimes forget that self-forgiveness is a prerequisite to deep self-love. So how do you do it? Well, I think the most important part of this entire conversation that we're having is really trying to learn on how to zoom out. And what do I mean by zooming out? Well, if you did something terrible, now I'm gonna jump into something that I felt really terrible for when I was 16. I write about it in my book. This was the first thing that I really had to come to terms with. And once I did this, I could talk about anything. But I'm not gonna go into detail with this, but when I was 16, I'd been with my girlfriend for over a year. I was ready to have sex. She wasn't ready yet. We were both virgins. We'd been talking about it a lot. She grew up Church of Christ, which is really strict. And in the heat of the moment, I tried to convince her. And after she told me to stop a couple times, my third try to convince her, she was silent, and I took that as consent. A few seconds later, my, happy finish turned into terror because she was crying, and I felt absolute, like I wanted to jump out of my skin and beat the hell out of myself. Like I could not believe that I just did something that I thought I was incapable of doing. And I held a lot of shame and guilt about that for a long time. By no means was that a good or right thing. Like I know that. But so how have I been able to forgive myself and really start loving myself for that? Well, first thing you gotta be willing to do, you gotta be willing to reflect and look at it. And own up to it and really say, yes, that was wrong. And then really start peeling back the onion and peeling back your life and really just kind of try to get a better understanding about what led you to that point in your life. And then the most important part of this talk I really want you to try to do is try to see things from a friend's perspective. So in my example, like what would one of my friends tell me if I were to tell them that story? And I'd tell them exactly what happened. Well, they would console me. They would have compassion. They would say, it's not as bad as, things like that happen, and, whatever. They would just try to make me feel better, and that's fine. But you got to really try to see that from their perspective. Because when we do something, we oftentimes just are mad at ourselves. We can't believe we did that. We just kick ourselves and be mad about it. But the truth is that there's an inner child that is broken, that isn't fully mature, that it makes bad decisions, and you're not defined by your past. But, this is a very important but, if you're not able to reflect on your past, talk about it, and be real about it, and actually have remorse about it, then you'll always hang on to that. That's still gonna be a part of you. So the way that we move on from our past is being able to look at it, be real about it, own up to it, and talk about it, and say, yes, I did this, this was wrong. I'm not gonna carry on this shame and guilt because I'm not that person anymore. I've learned and I'm moving on. And then just really trying to give yourself as much compassion and empathy as you possibly can. Same amount of compassion and empathy that you would give to a 5-year-old who, did something terrible, kicked the dog or whatever. Of course, kicking the dog's terrible. We love dogs. But a 5-year-old, they just do things and they don't even know that it's terrible. Man, teenagers, we have a lot of wild emotions and all the different what's the hormones? There we go. Word I couldn't get to. But it makes kids do really dumb things, and we even do things when we're adults. I've done a lot of really silly and dumb things when I'm an adult, but I've been able to reflect on those and be real about them and try to be as honest as I possibly can about what I was feeling in those moments and what led me to make some of those decisions. And then something that is vitally important to really being able to let go of all this shame and guilt is you have to eventually learn how to be thankful for that mistake or for that wrongdoing, whatever it was. And as terrible as it is, I am grateful that I did that when I was 16. If I could take it back, yes, of course I'd take it back. But I'm still grateful for it because I wouldn't be here talking to you today if that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have found out about this deep truth about my family if that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had my enlightening experience. When I say enlightenment, it's a forever journey. I'm not saying that I've reached something or that I'm at the point of the top of the point. Like, that doesn't necessarily exist. Of course it does. It's a paradox. But we're forever growing, forever learning. I have so much more to learn and grow that it's unfathomable to me. So when I say that, understand where I'm coming from. But if I wouldn't have done that really terrible thing, then I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have a book to share with the world, and I wouldn't have all this poetry to share with the world. So thank you all for joining me today. I think this conversation is good to end with a poem. But just kind of recap, really just try to find that inner child and have compassion for that inner child and know that you were just doing your best, man. Like, we're all just doing our best. But here's a poem for y'all, and then I'll send y'all y'all's way. Love always has been and forever will be the answer to our sorrows and all of our grief. But the love we need most isn't a partner for life. It's the love for ourselves that can heal all the strife. Thank y'all for joining me. This is your daily reminder. Go see yourself in the mirror, tell yourself you love yourself, and give yourself a big old hug and a kiss. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Aloha.